Today we are looking at the Congo Crisis. Let's get started. July 1960. The Congo, formerly known as the Belgian Congo, gained independence from colonial ruler Belgium. In the air, fireworks lit up the sky. On the ground, people cheered. Congo was free, or so they thought. Behind the scenes, however, the new government was hanging by a thread. Belgium had rushed the Congo into independence with little preparation. The result was a country in turmoil. The new prime minister, Patrice Lumumba, was a firebrand who dreamed of uniting the Congo and kicking out all foreigners. The president, Joseph Kasavubu, was a cautious leader who played both sides during the colonial era. Neither man could govern without the other, but their relationship quickly soured. The Congo's army, which was still mostly led by white Belgian officers, soon began to mutiny. The Belgians panicked. They feared being trapped in the Congo with no way to escape. So they fled. And when they did, they took something precious with them, leaving the Congolese without an infrastructure to run the country. As thousands of Belgians fled the Congo, the nation descended into total chaos. With the economy stalled and people rioting in the streets, Kasavubu called the Belgians back in to restore order. But this move only solidified Lumumba's suspicion that the president had betrayed them. Later that month, Lumumba resigned and went to eastern Congo to rally support for a new nationalist movement. However, after a few weeks, the local army commander shot him and sent him to Kinshasa to face charges. At this point, things looked bleak for the young nation. The Congo was fracturing before its first year was out. Lumumba knew he couldn't trust the Congolese army, so he decided to seek outside help. First, he reached out to the United States. However, the Americans weren't interested in helping the Congo. The US viewed the country as strategically unimportant and declined to intervene. So Lumumba turned to the Soviet Union. And just like that, he drew a red line in blue territory. To make matters worse, Lumumba accused the CIA of plotting against him. This convinced the paranoid American government that the Soviets had taken control of the Congo. Soon, Cold War sirens were blaring in Washington. President Eisenhower immediately ordered the CIA to find a solution to the crisis. The agencies soon had their answer: remove Lumumba. The CIA hatched a plan to overthrow Lumumba and replace him with a pro-Western leader. But there was one problem. The CIA didn't have boots on the ground in the Congo to carry out the plan. Most nations viewed the country as too unstable to send operatives into. However, Belgium was eager to send a few. The Belgians saw Lumumba as a threat to their interests in the region and were happy to help the CIA get rid of him. As the CIA planned Lumumba's removal, the Prime Minister worked to strengthen his position in the country. He traveled throughout the Congo, rallying supporters and building his base of power. But it wasn't enough. The CIA had other plans for him. On September 11, 1960, Moise Tshombe declared the mineral-rich Katanga province independent. Many viewed Tshombe as a charismatic and ruthless leader who wasn't afraid to speak his mind. Tshombe believed that Katanga was better off alone rather than stuck in a failing state. And he had the backing of Belgium, French mercenaries, and Western corporations to prove it. Soon, Katanga was an open rebellion against the central government. In response, Lumumba asked the UN to send peacekeepers to restore order. However, the UN force, known as ONUC, lacked a strong mandate and the means to stop Katanga's advance. Meanwhile, violence erupted across the country. And while the fighting raged on, Lumumba's enemies made their move. While the Congo descended into chaos, the CIA and their allies moved swiftly to secure Katanga's borders and prevent any UN intervention. They bribed Katanganese officials, provided weapons to the Katanganese army, and even sent in American pilots to fly surveillance missions. As the fighting intensified, Lumumba grew increasingly desperate. He appealed to the UN for help, but the organization was paralyzed by indecision. And as the weeks passed, his hopes for international support faded. Soon, the plotters had gathered enough support to carry out their plan. Lumumba was arrested and flown back to Kinshasa. He was charged with treason and imprisoned in a small hut near the airport. The UN steps in. Kind of. By late October, Lumumba was a prisoner in the Congo. His allies were fleeing the country and the UN had yet to intervene. On October 14, 1960, Lumumba was handed over to the provincial government of South Kasai. They intended to put him on trial for his crimes. But everyone knew this was a sham. The writing was on the wall. Lumumba would never see justice in the Congo. After 2 days in South Kasai, Lumumba was marched through the jungle to a village called Elizabethville. There he was held in a small hut with a dirt floor. All the while, rumors swirled about his fate. Some said he would be released. Others claimed he would be executed. As the world waited for word from the Congo, Lumumba's captors grew impatient. On February 17, 1961, the provincial government handed Lumumba over to Katanga's authorities. They wanted him gone. Suddenly, the rumors were put to rest. The following day, the New York Times reported that Lumumba had been executed. The world mourned the loss of the charismatic leader who had been a beacon of hope for many Africans. But in the Congo, the celebrations were muted. The country was still in chaos, and Lumumba's death did little to change that. The murder of Lumumba. Most accounts agree that Lumumba was beaten, tortured, and shot by his captors before being dissolved in acid. But there's some debate as to whether the murder was sanctioned by the central government. According to documents declassified in the 1990s, Lumumba was killed with the knowledge of Western governments. These revelations sparked outrage across Africa and renewed calls for justice for Lumumba. But despite the evidence pointing to a conspiracy, no one has ever been held accountable for Lumumba's death. The world moved on from the Congo Crisis, but for the people of the Congo, the wound remains raw. Mobutu rises. In 1965, Joseph Mobutu seized power in the Congo and ushered in a new era of corruption and repression. Mobutu ruled like a god over his people. He changed the country's name to Zaire and set about remaking it in his own image. He lavished money on himself and his cronies while the rest of the population lived in poverty. Mobutu's regime was notorious for its human rights abuses. He ruled with an iron fist, and anyone who opposed him was quickly silenced. Despite the widespread condemnation of Mobutu's regime, the West looked the other way. They preferred a brutal dictator to a free press. Mobutu stayed in power for 32 years until he was ousted in a popular uprising. Global fallout. The Congo Crisis was a defining moment of the Cold War. As the world watched the U.S. and USSR vie for control of the Congo, it became clear that the superpowers were willing to sacrifice anything to win the ideological battle. In the end, the Congo became a battleground for proxy wars, coups, and assassinations. The UN's role in the Congo was supposed to be a peacekeeping mission, but it soon became clear that the organization was toothless in the face of superpower rivalry. The world stood by as the Congo descended into chaos. No one was willing to step in and stop it. The legacy of the Congo Crisis continues to haunt Africa today. The region remains plagued by conflict, poverty, and corruption, and many believe that the scars of the Cold War will never truly heal. The aftermath. Today, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is still recovering from the trauma of the past. The country is rich in resources, but most of its people live in extreme poverty. The Congo has been plagued by conflict and instability since the end of the Cold War. In recent years, the country has seen 2 major wars, as well as ongoing violence in the eastern part of the country. Despite the challenges, the people of the Congo continue to strive for a better future. The country has made some progress in recent years, but much work remains to be done. Ending the Forgotten War. The Congo Crisis may be over, but the scars of the Forgotten War remain. The Congo is still paying the price for being caught in the middle of the Cold War. But despite the challenges, the people of the Congo continue to hope for a brighter future. The country is rich in resources, and its people are resilient. With continued effort, the Congo can overcome its troubled past and build a better future for its people. What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more historical insights, subscribe to our channel for more updates.